to this webinar from the Open Group, which is the first in 2017, one of a series of webinars that we will be delivering to you over the next 12 months. Before I hand over to Sonia Gonzalez of the Open Group's today's presentation, I'd just like to have a few housekeeping issues to keep today's event moving forward smoothly. First, answer to questions. If you'd like to ask the panel a question, I can ask you to do that by writing it in the text QA facility. If you have a question there, can I ask you to address it to all participants? That way, one gets to see all the questions that are being submitted. And then is to try and answer as many questions as we can at the end of today's presentation. The presentation is also being fully recorded, so for any event you have to leave early, or if there's any local technical difficulties, then everyone who is registered for today's event will get an email with a link to the recording so they can access that at their leisure. So Sonia, if you're ready, can I ask you to start today's event?
We will formally start the end then. Welcome everybody to this webinar. We are going to talk about capability-based planning today. This is on a white paper that was delivered by Adina Aldea from Business and Bill Winsett from Oracle. They are both members of the Architecture and Archimate forums of the Open Group and the original authors of this material. So I'm going to start with the quick introduction. In my case, I'm Sonia Gonzalez. I'm the Architecture for an Archimate forum director for the Open Group, and I have been working along with Adina and Bill to deliver this important piece of information. Adina is a research consultant from business design and also a PhD candidate of the University of Twente, and she has been working in Archimate in capability-based planning and doing a consultancy work as well. And practitioner and architect from Oracle. He has been working for 25 years in IT strategy and consulting, and he also has a lot of experience in capability planning and business in IT strategy alignment. Regarding activity, there's a white paper that was published last year by the Open Group. You can find it in this link. And it's a very useful white paper, and actually all the material that you will see today, it's in that white paper, so you can also follow up on them in our application and take a look on this material as well. This is the content for today. We're going to start with an introduction about what is capability-based planning, key concepts, then some new elements from Archimate 3, which is the newest version of the standard that was released last year in June. Then why capability-based planning, what is capability-based planning as a method, and then some practical use cases. And it's also important to say that this is a joint activity between the Architecture and Archimate forums, and it's an example how we collaborate into the Open Group forums to deliver all this information. A few key concepts about capability planning, and also Irina is going to contribute on that. First, capability-based planning is mostly focused on planning, engineering, and delivery, strategic capabilities for the enterprise, and also to pursue their alignment between strategy, enterprise architecture, and portfolio management. So it's a technique that's used along with enterprise architecture and to pursue this alignment with the strategic plans and the operational ones. And also it's a technique that it's very useful for planning the proper investments and see which one of the strategic capabilities set to be leveraged or not. And actually, capability-based planning is one of the tools and techniques that are mentioned and suggested by the TOGAF framework, which is, like you know, the standard for enterprise architecture. Okay, so key concept that Dana will explain further and also explain the Archimate concept. Capability, we have defined that as a particular ability or capacity that a business has to achieve a specific outcome, to achieve a purpose, and to address specific concerns for stakeholders. We also talk about capability increment, which means how are we going to improve a specific capability to a future state, to improve it and to pursue better delivery and more value to the final user. And also we have to measure all these capabilities. So for that, we need to define specific metrics. And in that, Adina will show different techniques and different kind of modeling that we can use to measure these capabilities and as well the capability increments. And now I'm going to give Adina, you can explain a little bit more about the new Archimate 3 specification.
Thank you very much, Sonia. As Sonia mentioned, in TOGA there is already an idea of capability-based planning and capability and other related concepts. However, in Archimate 3, in the Archimate 3.0 specification, several concepts have been added that are extremely important and helpful for modeling capability-based planning. One of them is, of course, capability, which refers to what you're able to do as an organization. Another very important one is resource, basically what assets you need in order to support your capabilities. Course of action, of course, can be used to model strategy, tactics, or initiatives that dictate how you're going to achieve your goals and also how you configure your capabilities and resources. Finally, outcome, a motivation element, which can help you model which results you want to achieve or which results you have achieved with a particular strategy. There are also some additional elements that have been added which support the modeling of physical aspects. These are not directly important for capability-based planning, but I will mention them as well. Concepts such as facility, equipment, material, and distribution network. More information you can find in the new Archimate specification if you're interested about this as well. This is a bit an overview of the new elements of Archimate. Here you can see their definitions and also notations. I covered a bit of the definition earlier on. What is important here to see is that capability, resource, course of action, and outcome are actual elements which are defined within Archimate 3. And the ones Sonia mentioned previously, metric and capability increment, do not exist in the standard language, but can be modeled with the help of an Archimate language extension mechanism. Basically, with this, you can create specializations of existing concepts in order for you to use them for different purposes. And used metric as a concept by creating it as a specialization of the driver element, and capability increment as a specialization of capability. The Archimate 3 specification contains an example of how these language extensions can be done. It has these two examples specifically mentioned in it. You can see the meta model, a combined meta model of the strategy and motivation elements. You can see the strategy elements are positioned in between the motivation elements, which are represented here by outcome and requirement. And they are positioned, so they are realized by core elements such as business application technology and also newly added physical elements. Here, you can also see a separation in between the types of core elements that can realize a capability and a resource. On the side, capability you can see can be realized by internal and external behavior elements. A few examples of these are processes, services, functions, of course, business process, but also function and such, and it goes across all the layers. Resources on the right side can be realized by both active and passive structure elements, which a few examples could be application component, business actor, node, data object, and also composite elements can aggregate composite elements such as and grouping. Now that we presented a bit about what capability-based planning is and also how it can be supported by Archimate, we have a look at one organization would use capability-based planning and essentially what benefits it could get from using such an approach. First of all, capabilities can provide then stakeholders with simple terminology, a common terminology that can present clearly and can be business-oriented and can be used to discuss between stakeholders that have different backgrounds, knowledges, or functions. As we can see in the example on the slide, the terminology used for these capabilities, it makes clear what they refer to and how they can be used. Capability-based planning also provides the techniques and the support to perform high-level analysis by focusing on what an organization can do instead of the details about how it can do it. Really, the details about how it can do it are what you would find in enterprise architecture. A few examples of such techniques include maturity assessments, benchmarking, heat mapping, and others. This kind of high-level assessment can be very useful for supporting decision-making related to where the organization wants to head in, and also to which aspects it should invest in. This example, we see a heat map, which uses color coding to present the different values that a metric can have on a scale from low to high. It's represented by a red color and green and high by a green color in this example.
Okay. It's also important to explain the first sentence that you will see here, focus on what our organization can do and on how, means like, for example, you have a specific capability here, which is in this example, the money management. This is supported or realized, talking in Archimate terms, by a series of different process or macro processes. So those processes are connected with the capabilities and explaining in more detail how the capability should be delivered or addressed and which specific resources it will need. So that's one explanation about this one, and that's one of the difference between a capability and a process, which is something like it is very important to understand in this context.
Sonia, for the explanation, and also the same difference between capability and business function, which a lot of questions are about. Yeah, as mentioned before, capability-based planning can also help organizations with prioritizing investments. It can do this by creating a clear relationship between desired outcomes of the organization and their portfolios of projects. This kind of relationship can be very useful, of course, for prioritizing projects. I'm very sorry. I don't know if you can hear this, but we have some sounds in our building.
It is fine. It is fine, Adina.
Okay, so I can be heard. Okay, that's very good because it's extremely loud. I apologize for this. So yeah, this kind of relationship can be very useful for prioritizing projects and also for improving allocation of resources. And capabilities can also be considered as a basis for making investment. So they're usually relatively stable and mostly change in terms of performance or maturity rather than as you would see for other projects. A lot of projects and they change a lot, and in the case of goals, an organization can have many goals and they change. Capabilities are relatively stable over time and mostly change in terms of performance or maturity, as a small added explanation. In this example, we can see a spider chart which shows both the current state of a capability, so its performance, for example, and also the desired future state. As you can see, the current state is highlighted in blue. I hope you can see it, and the future state is highlighted in red. And you can see a gap in between how a capability is performing currently and how it needs to perform in the future in order to help realize the goals and the strategy of an organization. Also where investments can be made into improving these certain aspects of a capability. Capability-based planning also can provide support for planning organizational change by focusing on the development of capabilities over time. And the development of these capabilities can be supported by techniques such as a roadmap. And in a roadmap, you normally see the different states in the evolution of a capability and their planning over time. These different states of the capability are usually represented by capability increments, as Sonia mentioned in the beginning. And the differences between the increments of a capability can also be defined and analyzed with the help of a gap analysis. In the example that we have on the slide, you can see a roadmap which illustrates the evolution of several capabilities across multiple years.
Okay, we make this particular slide with TAF. In TAF, especially in phase E and F, which are about the planning and the preliminary migration plan, we also define capability increments, and we define how we're going to deliver those in time, which is depicted in here in capability terms. How we're going to reach a future state. In this case, is the improvement on a specific set of capabilities.
Finally, capability-based planning can improve alignment between different disciplines within an organization, such as strategic management, enterprise architecture, portfolio management. In terms of Archimate, basically strategy elements, which are used for the purposes of modeling capability-based planning, are helping to achieve the motivation of organizations, which are represented by requirements, goals, and outcomes. And these strategic elements, so the strategy elements, are realized by the elements of the core Archimate, such as processes, applications, actors, and other elements. And finally, this part, the core elements, are also realized by programs and projects within organizations. Here you can see a bit of the hierarchy of how you can model the different aspects within an architecture and how capabilities relate to the existing elements of the Archimate specification. In the slides, we're going to have a closer look at capabilities and also at the capability-based planning method. This method is also included in the white paper, so you can also see there for more information. Basically, as also emphasized previously, capabilities define what an organization does, focusing on they don't focus on how an organization does specific thing or who is doing it. And as also mentioned before, this is the main difference to business functions or business processes, which are more focused on the structure of the organization or the specific processes that it can have and can also occur multiple times. And a capability is independent of organizational structure or processes and only occurs once, so it is unique within the organization. And there focuses on the what the organization is able to do. And capabilities are named by using clear and simple terms. We usually have a business connotation to them, so that's why they're very useful for architects to use in discussions with their business leaders. And, capabilities are relatively stable, as also mentioned before, and usually change in terms of performance and or maturity. Finally, a capability is also considered the smallest unit that can have its own architecture.
Okay. Explain a little bit more this one about the own architecture. A capability is the highest level. So, for example, you can have a capability like money management that we referred in the previous example, and we have a set of different processes and business functions that are supporting that capability. And then we can go further in the architecture description, and we also identify resources that should be added to that capability, and also application components or technology components going either deeper that are also supporting that capability. That's why it is very important to understand how capability-based planning can be the link between the strategy, the business, and also the operational units into the organization.
Capabilities can also be classified in multiple ways, based on how they're used for analysis and planning, or simply based on the preference of a particular user of capability-based planning. You can see a few examples of capability classification. So a core versus non-core, or strategic, operational, and supporting, and some other examples you can see here. These classifications can be extremely useful when designing a capability map, and an example that will come shortly, we will see how they can be used as well. Now we had a look at what capability-based planning is and what its main benefits are. Here is our capability-based planning method, which is designed with enterprise architecture and Archimate specifically in mind. As you can see, this method has four generic steps, namely map, assess, plan, and monitor. Each of these steps, you can see on the slide, also have several deliverables which are related to them. In the case of map, we have the capability map, which contains all the capabilities of an organization. We also have a detailing of the architecture, which helps support each capability, which in this slide you see it's called a capability architecture. And also a selection of the capabilities that are required by specific strategies, which here are called strategic capabilities, as also mentioned by the TOGAF definition of capabilities planning. For assess, we have the metrics, which are used to analyze the capabilities, capability heat maps, which present the result of the analysis, the capability gaps, which present the gap in between the current state and the future desired state. And this future desired state is the one that helps the organization achieve its goals. We have for plan, we have capability increments, which represent the different stages in the evolution of a capability. The capability development roadmaps, which define how these increments are ordered, and also define how the capabilities develop over time. And finally, the scenarios which contain alternative roadmaps. You can consider different ways of planning your capabilities and their improvement over time. In the case of monitor, we have aspects that are usually common to disciplines such as portfolio management. Here there are details about the implementation of the capability and that implementation in relation to its development roadmap. And these kind of details can also be presented in dashboards with the help of charts and tables.
Okay, you can also connect this method with the phases of the EM in TOGAF. So, for example, for the mapping, in the preliminary phase, in phase A, which is in which we define the vision, we identify key capabilities that we have or should have in the organization. We identify the strategic architecture, meaning the strategic capabilities. Then assess, we make a modeling using the phases B, C, and D from the TOGAF ADM method. And in there, we identify how these different capabilities should be connected between each other, how they are supported. We define metrics for them, and we start identifying some gaps, how these capabilities can be improved. In the planning, it's in phase E and F, in which we make the implementation and evaluation techniques, and we make the preliminary planning, and we define the capability increments and the roadmap, like the technique Lina just showed with the different incremental stage in time. And finally, in the monitoring, we have phase G and H from the ADM, which are about governance, which is measuring the value that those capabilities are delivering, and also changing change in phase H, which is change management, how these capabilities should be adapted to face the new trends and the new reality that organizations are facing.
The following slides, we look at how capability-based planning can be applied by using the example case of Archipharma, which is an anonymized pharmaceutical organization. I will tell a bit shortly about the organization and what it intends to do. Basically, Archipharma in the recent years has experienced several difficulties with complying to new regulations and also related to customer satisfaction. And in order to deal with these issues, they decided to employ a new strategy which focuses on operational excellence. This new strategy involves changes in many areas, which should result in the end in an integrated customer database, completely standardized processes, and also in a rationalization of their application landscape. The first step that we're going to look at the method is, of course, capability mapping. Capability map is a technique which can be used to model capabilities an organization has in a structured manner. It can also be used to communicate and make decisions based on aspects such as strategic importance of capabilities, their performance, costs, related resources, and other aspects. And so it can provide a basis for planning the evolution of capabilities. Capability map is the most simplistic and the most basic component of capability-based planning, and it is essentially correct. In many cases, it might take a lot of time and effort, also the involvement of multiple stakeholders in order to get the capability map in its more complete and final form. This is the example of the Archipharma capability map. Here you see we have a classification of capabilities, strategic, operational, and supporting. And we also have another element in here. We see that the capability map also contains two levels of capabilities. I'm not sure you can see, but in the top right corner, there's a capability called strategic management in light and that one is considered a level 1 capability, so it's a generic capability. It's a highest level capability this organization has. This strategic management capability is decomposed into 3 more specific capabilities: business planning, business development, and enterprise architecture. Level 2 capabilities. It's also commonly recommended that not more than 3 levels of capabilities should be included in a capability map. And the main reason for this is that more than 3 layers would diminish the ability of a capability map to provide a comprehensive but also manageable overview of what an organization is able to do. Also, if you go into much detail, you end up talking about functions and processes and not about capabilities anymore. Here's an example of how the new operational excellence strategy of Archipharma is related to elements of its capability map. Strategy in this case is modeled with Archimate, and it's modeled with the use of the new course of action element. Strategy is realized by 2 capabilities, in this case customer management and financial management. And these 2 capabilities are in turn supported by several resources, such as customer support, customer-facing applications, and financial applications. In this case, capabilities that we see here are the ones that are considered the strategic capabilities of the organization in addition to the operational excellence strategy, which means that these 2 capabilities are needed in order to realize the operational excellence strategy. Previous example, we looked at how capabilities are related upwards towards the organizational strategy and goals. Here we have a look at how they can be related downwards towards the business, application, and technology architecture. And as you can see, the behavior elements of the business layer in this case are realizing the customer billing and collection management capability of Archipharma. The structure elements of the application layer realize the customer-facing resource of Archipharma. Of course, you can have behavior elements from all the layers, and also you can have structure elements from all the layers. This is just a small example of the distinction between behavior elements realizing capabilities and structure elements realizing resources.
Okay. It's also an explanation of how a particular capability has its own architecture. In this case, customer billing and collection management, which is a capability that is aggregated into another one, it's being realized by a set of business elements, like Adina just said, which are 3 processes, which are behavior elements in Archimate, that are as well realizing business services, which are the ones that are on top. And you see also we have some structural elements from the application layer in Archimate that are also being used by those processes, and as well, those active elements are also realizing the resources assigned to the capability. So you can decompose the different capabilities and see and identify which key resources you need to have in your organization in order to deliver those capabilities.
Look at how the capabilities of Archipharma are mapped. This is just an example. And we also saw how they related to the strategic intent of the organization and also to the architecture that realizes them. In the next step, in the assessing of capabilities part, we look at how they can be analyzed. And here we see that we have the capability map of Archipharma again, that was presented in the previous slides. And as I mentioned, this can be used as a basis for analyzing capabilities. And in our case, it's a base for creating a heat map, which presents how capabilities are performing in relation to the new operational excellence strategy. You can see coding that we also had before. In this case, it is a generic metric that is used for this analysis, performance in this case, and simple scale of below average, average, and above average. And you can see the color correspondence with the scale. By looking at this capability map, we can easily see which capabilities are underperforming in relation to the operational excellence strategy. This is important is because in order for the strategy to succeed, these capabilities need to be improved. And of course, any type of metric can be used to create a capability heat map, and performance is just a generic example of what you can do. But you have more specific metrics if you so desire. And speaking of metrics, from the Archimate 3.0 specification point of view, metrics can be modeled as a specialization of drivers through the language extension mechanism. It's also be associated with any architectural elements and not only to capability. So other aspects of the architecture can also be measured and evaluated. And metrics can also be aggregated and decomposed to create more advanced types of analysis. As you can see in the example of the metric of performance, it's decomposed into number of incidents, user experience, and SLA compliance. Another capability metrics can be used, besides a heat map, is to create, for example, a spider chart, as we can see here. In this example, we also have a process performance metric, and this metric is decomposed into more specific ones, such as accuracy, uniformity, reliability, task time, and cost. 5 sub-metrics can be used, for example, as the axis of a spider chart, so the dimensions that you will assess the capability on. In our example, we can see customer management capability. It's assessed with the help of these metrics. And based on this, we can see that the current performance of the capability, presented in the blue outline, does not match the desired performance of the capability, presented in the red outline. In order for the capability to be sufficient for realizing the new operational excellence strategy, it would need to be improved, specifically in relation to uniformity, accuracy, and cost metrics. Examples of other types of analysis that can be done without the help of metrics. Here you can see different types of color maps, which highlight strategic relevance, goal contribution, and application support. These, as you can see on a capability map, are created with the help of relationships in Archimate models. So in these cases, there's a relationship between course action, for example, in the first case, and a capability, and therefore we can create a color map which represents which capability help realize which course of action. The same for goals and the same for applications. And you can see there in the applications that there are multiple applications that help, that support a specific capability.
Okay, here this slide has a lot of value because, like you can see, you can have different points of view in here. We also talk about different stakeholder concerns and different viewpoints in architecture, enterprise architecture. In this case, you have here the strategic point of view and the strategic relevance and goal contribution. And you can also have a more technical view, which is the application support. So in this case, for example, for more technical audience, you will see, okay, this is a key capability. These capabilities are support for this specific application, meaning that if for any reason this application are no longer available, will be able to reach or deliver that capability. So depending on the stakeholder, you will deliver in different kind of maps and show, like Karina was explaining, these different heat maps, graphics.
See another example of ability assessment. This is one that is done completely without Archimate, and it's basically, it uses metrics and a simple scale of 5. And for each of this, you can see the different. I cannot hear us. You see how the different capabilities rated on these scales. And on the right side, you can also see a sort of a gap analysis. You can see also color coding, and that on the left side you have the current state, and on the right side the future state, and the gap in between the two states.
Okay. I know you said something very important. The previous diagrams that we saw, all the models have been in Archimate, because Archimate leverage capability-based planning, and also enterprise architecture as a whole has a modeling notation. This means that you can still do capability-based planning without using Archimate, even though using the two of them will be even more powerful. So there are two different techniques. I mean, capability-based planning is a technique that can be along with enterprise architecture, and on the other side we have Archimate, which is a modeling notation, a modeling language, then it is to represent enterprise architecture. So in this specific presentation and examples, we are combining the two of them, but just clarify, you don't necessarily have to have Archimate views. However, having them will deliver more value to your final stakeholders.
And it also can become easier to manage capability maps and also metrics and assessments of such.
Exactly. Yeah.
Here's another example, a final example, and this is a variation of the heat map. It's called the heat map, and with the heat map you normally have a color code, so you have standard stoplight coloring, red, green, and yellow. And there's another dimension added to it, which is size. And in this example, you can see the business value impact is the size of the box, and the IT support of the capability is the color. So this is more advanced version of a tree map, which can serve the same purpose. It can also be done without the help of Archimate, of course. Now we had a look at how capabilities can be mapped and assessed. We continue example by looking at how to plan the improvement of the underperforming capabilities over time with the help of roadmaps. And essentially, any improvement to a capability is realized with the help of a project or multiple projects. In Archimate terms, this means that we can relate the project roadmap to the capability roadmap with the help of a realization relation, as you can also see there. Thus, the different states of a capability, or the capability evolution, presented by capability increments, can be realized by one or more projects. In the here, we can see 3 projects that help improve the customer management capability by realizing the different increments, so the different transition from one point to another, one state in the evolution to another. And on the right side, we can see that this is the generic relationship. So you have a work package which realizes a plateau, which represents the architecture of the organization, which realizes a capability increment. In the picture, you can see more about plateaus. For those who are not very familiar with the concept of plateau, they are Archimate elements which represent a snapshot of an architecture which exists during a limited period of time. And plateau can also be used to model the evolution of a capability from its current state, in this case baseline, you can see in this figure, to its target state, in case represented by the target plateau on the right side. And with the help of plateaus, you can also model the transitional architectures, which can realize the different transitional increments of the capability. Finally, you can also model different implementation scenarios for these capability increments. As you can also see here, we have an example of transition A and transition B, which are 2 alternatives of implementation, which are linked together by an OR junction.
Yeah. Match with TOGAF and enterprise architecture as a whole, we are looking here which is the architecture increments or the preliminary architecture that you can organize during the preliminary phase and also during the implementation and migration phase, in which you define which one your migration plan will be. So you can have, like in this case, you can have either an option from the baseline and you go further on you reach the target state, and you can have, depending on the value on a specific metrics, you can decide if either go from one side or the other. So in fact, is what we call the incremental the architectures or like transition architectures.
Yeah. In this figure, you can also see that you can see the relationships to the projects that are helping to realize these different plateaus. This is another variation. It's a color map. And this you can also highlight the contribution of specific projects to specific capabilities. This kind of visualization can also help to get clear insights into what kind of investments certain capabilities require. In this case, we can see that some capabilities have multiple projects that contribute to them, so require bigger investment than the others that only require one project. Of course, the one project could be more expensive than the more, but it's a good overview about this part as well. And it also can improve the link between projects and the contribution of projects to organizational strategy, since capabilities are directly related to organizational strategy and goals. This is again the example you've seen in the beginning of the presentation. This is also a type of an evolution roadmap. This is not related to unrelated to Archimate, and here you can see the little circles represent the different states of capability, the different increments, and there are certain metrics that are used to assess the evolution of these metrics in time, of these capabilities in time. And at each point on the right, you can see an increase or perhaps decrease. It's also possible of the value of these metrics that are being used. This is another variation to a roadmap, to a capability roadmap, which contains more financial information and also more details about initiatives. And this can be very useful for analyzing investments and getting a good overview of it. You see that there are different business units. You can see the relationship between the specific capabilities and also the business units. And in this example, you can also see you don't see specific capability increments defined. Our capability-based planning method focuses on monitoring and evaluating the implementation of the capability development roadmap. The main of capability monitoring is to continuously measure the development of the capabilities and to compare basically the realized outcomes to the expected outcomes of this development. And it is very important to continuously monitor your capabilities in order to detect any possible issues early on in the process and to also make adjustments accordingly very quickly. So don't invest a lot of money in the wrong place, and you can quickly also readjust yourself, as I've mentioned. One way to monitor the evolution of capabilities, of course, is with the help of the spider charts that was also presented earlier. As you can see, these techniques serve also multiple purposes within our capability-based planning method, and it is very useful to have a capability to have a spider chart at this point. If you have used it also to assess and plan the capability development roadmap, because you have the information, and then you can just add the different values of the metrics at the different times. So you can do this at any time as long as you have measured it and progress of capabilities. And in this example, we can see an overview of the current state of development for all the capabilities of Archipharma in relation to their two strategies. So the original product leadership strategy and also the new operational excellence strategy. Finally, there, of course, also another way of doing capability monitoring, that is with the help of portfolio management. And similarly to projects and applications, capabilities can also be managed in portfolios, which are monitored and evaluated frequently with the help of metrics. And these kind of analysis that you can see here, also the ones that you might normally find in a project portfolio management or application portfolio management dashboard. And they can also be used to present information about the development of capabilities over time. Now we summarize the most important aspects of what we presented in the webinar today about capability-based planning. And that is that capabilities are used to communicate about the business with the types of stakeholders, and it's easy to do so due to their simplicity, clarity, and focus on business outcomes. Capability-based planning enables high-level assessments of organizations, which can be used to support decision-making, and this decision-making can be related to the direction an organization should head in, or the different aspects it should invest in. Prioritize these investments by having a clear relationship between the desired outcomes of the organization and also their portfolios of projects, as we've also shown previously. And this kind of relationship can be very useful for prioritizing projects and improving the allocation of resources to these projects. Furthermore, capability-based planning can provide support for planning, of course, of organizational change, with a focus on the development of capabilities over time. The planning is usually considered to be modular and flexible, and can support for organizations to be more responsive to their environment. Additionally, capability-based planning can also, as we mentioned, improve the alignment between strategy, enterprise architecture, and projects by providing a level of abstraction that is can connect operations, tactics, and the strategy of an organization. Finally, Archimate 3, the new specification, added modeling support for capability and strategy-related concepts, which are extremely useful and valuable for capability-based planning. And to mention them again, the elements of capability, resource, course of action, and outcome. On this slide, you can see, again, the link to the capability-based planning white paper, which is used as a basis for what we have presented so far. And here are some more useful links, such as to a discussion forum and to an Archimate quick reference manual.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Irina. I think we have a little bit more than 10 minutes to some questions answered that our participants have been putting in the chat. The first one of them, and I think in a way has been answered during the presentation, what's the difference between capabilities and high-level processes?
Yeah, capabilities is I think you also mentioned it, and I also mentioned it. Capabilities are a layer above this. They are more abstract than just business processes. Business processes are highly focused on, let's say, the activities of the organization and such, and capabilities are a bit more abstract of that. And capabilities are not specifically by a certain business unit or so, or can be organization-wide. They are only occur once, so not each business unit has its own capability. You don't have the same capability within multiple business units, but you have one generic one, which is owned by the organization, while processes can be more specific, and it's the same as for functions. Functions are often they in the structure of the organization, and they can occur multiple times, and capabilities are a level above that. May I also add some more to this explanation if you consider necessary?
No, I think it's very clear and was also explained during the presentation. The next one, it's about an example for a motivation element.
To give an example of a motivation element, goal is a motivation element, requirement is a motivation element, stakeholder, driver. Yeah, I'm having, of course, a few at the moment, but these, especially goal and requirement, are quite used, and stakeholder, you can model the apps that have a stake in a particular situation, and you can also with driver you can model their specific concerns about the topic. And of course, is also a very important one, because that's the way you interpret the results of the values of certain metrics with the help of an assessment.
This is all connected with the strategy modeling, basically the motivation elements. The next one, I can provide a preliminary answer, and then you can perhaps also complete that. Should an enterprise architect participate in capability-based planning, or should managers do the capability-based planning? I guess it's my advice as an architect would be to do it along with the enterprise architect, because you will have an overall view and an holistic view on the organization. However, it will depend on how the organization is shaped and organized. So advice would be to use enterprise architecture along with the capability-based planning, and like we explained today, along with Archimate modeling. So it would be like some kind of a best practice. And would you like to add something else, Rina?
Yeah, I would just like to say that also, as you've seen, our proposed, our recommended capability-based planning method also provides a possibility for this kind of collaboration to happen. And of course, you get the best results when you have all the information. So enterprise architecture provides quite of information, a lot of useful information, and this useful information can be discussed at an abstraction level, such as capabilities, so not focusing on the details, but it can definitely provide a lot of useful information, especially for types of like cost analysis and such. Those are very useful to have details about the architecture.
Okay, one was asking about the recording. I mean, like we explained, and also Simon explaining at the beginning, all the webinars are recorded, so you can go over the Open Group page and site, and you can go and see the recording. And in there, you will find all the links to the white papers and the different resources. And also in there, you will see all the capability heat map, which is another question in there. And also, if you need additional examples for heat mapping, besides the one in the presentation, all in there you will find Adina's email and also Bill's email, and they can provide additional examples for that. The other question is about the ADM. I think in the way we provide an explanation to that, I mean, the ADM, which is the process for making enterprise architecture in the TOGAF Center, could be along used with capability-based planning, like we were explaining. You may make all the mapping in the preliminary phase and in phase A. Then you make all the planning during the modeling phases, how the different capabilities are connected to each other. And then you make the plan for them in the implementation and migration and in the preliminary plan. And then you monitor and govern them in basically using the techniques in phase G and H of the ADM. However, like I say, the ADM is a generic method, so it can be adapted and used to suit the specific needs for the organization. It's is the methodology software process combined approach, or more heavily a software approach used to deliver analysis gaps, etc.?
I'm not sure if I understand the question correctly. Of course, it's a methodology, and it does not depend on a type of software you use for it. You could also use it without Archimate, and you can also use it without any other type of support. You can use Excel sheets. You can do it in Word, but of course, with software support, it is made easier because you can create very easily a capability map, but it's not required. You can just also use Excel for this, for example, or you have your own inventory of capabilities and your own structure of it. And I'm not sure if this is a good answer for the question.
Yes, more or less. Perhaps the question is because we show different techniques in here and different kind of graphics. So, of course, capability-based planning, and it's a technique, and enterprise architecture is a practice, and Archimate and TOGAF are both steps that support enterprise architecture. And also, we have tooling. I mean, we have different tools. Like Adina was saying, you can use PowerPoint or Excel, if those tools that you have, and they can be more specialized tools for making this. So it's a combination of the different techniques, standards, and tooling in order to achieve all this.
Yeah, okay. What you see in the presentation is just an idea of how you can visualize this type of information and how you can use it. But if you're not comfortable with using Archimate, if you don't know it that well, if you don't have a tool that supports it, just try to follow, and you would like to do capability-based planning, just try to look at what the method says and try to use it with what kind of tool support you currently have.
Okay. The other question is, what will be the frequency of KP heat map review, assuming that market change are moving goals?
Yeah, it's okay. It also depends on the company as well. But I'd say when you do certain thing, for example, or in the case of strategy and such, you have certain things that you look at in the market, and that could also dictate as often as a heat map. So, for example, something has changed in your market, you think it might have an impact on you. You can think of doing a heat map to see what kind of impact it could have on you. But you could also do it on a more regular basis. But it also depends on the type of company that you have, and also on the type of environment. If it's a high volatile environment, I assume that you have more advanced type of monitoring, so you should do maybe certain things more and more often, such as a heat map. But in a more stable environment, I would expect that you would do it more on a more stable basis, maybe in a less volatile environment, maybe, I don't know, twice a year or so, or when you have a new strategic direction, or such a thing in your organization.
Okay. The other question is a good book about capability-based planning. What I say on my side is that you can go the Open Group publication catalog in our site, and you will find a lot of publications in there. This is just all of them. You also have delivered a couple of very good guides about business capabilities value stream. They were published last week, so you can also go there. Adina, would you recommend other lecture as well?
Yeah, I didn't think about this, but yeah, of course, there's Business Architecture Guild has also something about it, and the TOGAF, of course, the 9.1 also contains a chapter in which in which you have a high-level view of what capability-based planning is. You could also, yeah, you can also always contact me, Bill, for more information about this. And also on the business side, we have a few blogs which we have published about capability-based planning. That could also be freely available, so you can come to our website and see about that as well. But otherwise, yeah, what's suggested from the Open Group are very good sources of information.
We have perhaps a couple of questions, but with a very quick answer. The next one is about technical capabilities like workflow management.
Can they be modeled, or in what sense?
I think the question, the way that I read it, is like we have been talking about business capabilities, but we need technical capabilities. And again, it will depend how you're shaping your business, because again, everything has to do with the business. For example, a technical capability could be to have all the different technical platforms online to serve your customers, even though that one is a technical capability. At the end, it's serving a business capability. So again, you can also use these techniques for technical purposes. I guess it's more or less the question.
And presented here today, of course, you can also use the techniques that we've used, for example, the capability map that you see there and all the other things for assessing capabilities. Just consider as a generic way of assessing capabilities, whether they are business capabilities or technical capabilities. You can always build a capability map. You can always use metrics to assess them. Just consider this as a generic, approach. Can also be used for technical capabilities.
Okay. Last one, how do capabilities need owner, and also are they connected with resource-based planning?
Well, technically, capabilities themselves they require resources. So capabilities cannot function very well without resources. And some even might argue that capabilities do not exist without resources, because you do need the people, you do need the applications and such to be able to have a capability to do something as an organization. So I would say that capability-based planning and resource-based planning are two very connected aspects. And of course, you could also consider that there are owners to capability and such, but yeah, or responsibles for certain capabilities in an organization for managing them and such. That of course a way to look at it. But actually the relationship between resources and capabilities, also how it is seen in the Archimate standard, is that you require certain resources in order to have certain capabilities within an organization.
We still have a few questions. However, I think we have reached the limit time for an hour. So what you may do, like I said, you can go over the Open Group site and you will find the recording there, and you can send your questions to either Adina, or B, or myself, and we will be very happy to support you in those questions. Thank you very much for all the attendees to this webinar and all those interesting questions, and thank you very much, Adina, and also Bill, that could be here because of a business commitment, for the excellent presentation and material.